Calling all scream queens, gore hounds, video nasties, and final girls. Turn out the lights and turn on the horror as we explore Tubi's frightening video vaults with the terrors of Tubi podcast. No one is safe as we hit horror history, commentary, and more with your hosts, Ryan and Joe.
This is 100% the scariest movie on Tubi right now.
One of my favorite movies, I'll be honest.
To avoid fainting, keep repeating, it's only a podcast. Only a podcast. Only a podcast.
Hello and welcome everyone to the Terrors of Tubi. My name is Ryan.
And I'm Joe.
And we are the Terrors of Tubi team, here to bring you the best of the best horror streaming on Tubi, or the worst of the worst. Honestly, there is quite a kitchen sink of horror on Tubi nowadays, and that's why we're doing this. We kind of really enjoy everything that's on Tubi, whether it's the really terrible stuff or the really amazing artistic. What do they call it these days? Elevated horror?
Yeah, elevated.
Yeah. So today we are talking about a rarely discussed movie that actually had a re-release on DVD by, I think, Arrow Video in 2019. But it's streaming free on Tubi. You should check it out. This is The Vineyard, starring James Hong. James Hong, if you don't know James Hong, he was recently in the, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once?
Yeah, that's right.
He was the evil grandfather, or not evil, I should say, but just he was the grandfather in Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Right. And
I was going to say he's most famous for Lo Pan and Big Trouble in Little China.
I was just about to say that.
One of my favorite movies, I'll be honest.
One of mine too. And I want to get into that too, because I feel like there's a lot of parallels between that movie and then sort of like maybe the outline they wrote for this movie to go off of that, right?
Oh, definitely. I think James Hong, Big Trouble in Little China was 1986. The Vineyard was 1989. And it definitely felt like there was some implications, some carryover from Big Trouble into this movie. So,
yeah. Well, and we'll get into that. So let's talk about, let's talk about first the synopsis. Like, do you want to try your little hand at a synopsis of this movie and try to explain exactly the batshit craziness that's involved?
I mean, this is probably, I don't even know if there's a great way to do a synopsis here. I even I looked online because I was curious to see like what different reviews said, because I just wanted to see how they summarized it. And it's amazing because when you search, different people actually got almost like a different synopsis of the movie, even because this thing is so all over the place. I personally think what would be fun, so that we don't change each other's opinion, is I think on a scale of 1 to 10, and let's do this going forward, just, what would you give this movie? And, you don't have to say why yet, but just so just for the audience, I would say I'd give this a 6.5.
Yeah. Okay. So here's my thing with ratings, because I think there's like different situations, right? So like if I were to watch a movie with a group of friends, I would rate this like an 8 or 9, out of 10 for a group of friends. If I were to go like out of my way to sit on the couch by myself and watch a movie on my own, I would probably rate it at like a 6 or a 5. You know what I mean? It's like one of those things where it's like, I really enjoy this, but man, I really enjoy this with like a group of people, I think. You know what I mean? Because it's so wacky and wonkadoodle, and it is a lot of fun by yourself for sure. But it's like, you also like, there's so many movies on Tubi right now that you could there's a lot of movies higher up on the list than this one, I would think. I don't know. Does that sound right? Am I just
right? If you're watching this, it's only to have fun. It's not. I'm sorry, it's just not for anything else. Like, it's just it's almost like a montage of campiness, and they like don't always know where it's going. And I don't think they always knew where they were going. And
I don't think so either.
So back to the synopsis, I would say my best attempt at a synopsis is the main character, played by James Hong, Dr. Poe, is a winemaker who is also using his wine in a sort of blood ritual to keep himself young forever. And in order to do so, he actually needs the blood of young people. There's also something with those same young people then being used as fertilizer for his vineyard, but it's unclear if that actually has any anti-aging effect without the ritual. And so a group of aspiring actors and actresses are convinced to come to his vineyard, which I believe is on an island. Correct me if I'm wrong. And they've been told that he is planning on casting them for a movie, but really there's a love interest with the main female, the female lead Jezebel, who's actually played by a Playboy bunny. I don't know if you saw that. She was a Playboy.
Oh, she was?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Oh.
Yeah, so she's like, which explains a little bit of like some of the, but anyway, so he's basically, she comes in as the love interest and possibly also the key to make him immortal forever, and sort of so he doesn't have to continue doing this blood ritual. There may be a one shot, which is a little bit, again, as we said before, reminiscent of Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah, I agree. I would say that's a pretty spot on synopsis. If I were to bring it down to like one sentence, if I could, I would say it's like a group of teens go to an island to be in a movie and find out that actually they're being harvested for their blood to make wine.
Yeah, that's a better way of doing it.
But I didn't, you know what I did do? I left out Hong. I didn't leave. I left out Dr. Poe. So I got to figure out how to add him in there. But that's it. That's basically what it is.
Yeah, you're right. It's just like the driving force for Poe, though, is not so much the wine; it's to stay immortal. The wine is just a happy byproduct of his centuries of knowledge, I would say.
Right. Okay. Now, I have a whole bunch of questions about that too. So, what do you want to do? Do you want to cover like the technical aspects of the movie, or do you want to kind of get into the story? Because I really want to get into the story, but it's up. What do you feel like doing?
I think for this one, the story actually is more important than the technical aspects, because one of the comments I had about the technical aspects is this was shot very evergreen. It almost felt like I was watching a play than a movie. It was shot for coverage. So I don't know if there is too much from the technical side.
Yeah, that's true. Well, actually, okay. So, there's actually a surprise. Do you know how much the budget was?
I do not.
Okay. Let's hold off on that, because you're gonna shit your pants basically when you find out what the budget was for this movie, and then you're gonna be like, "Hold on, no way, really?" And then we'll really get into the technical stuff after that, because I think it's actually, for the budget, it's actually like a really like economical type of project, I think. But anyway, okay, so let's get into the story, because there are a lot of things that I think that are like all over the place. Obviously, it's like well known to be like this kind of like 80s batshit type of story, right? Where there's just like so much coming at you. They basically just throw the whole kitchen sink and hope something sticks, I feel like. Yeah. But like also it's like a rated R movie, right? And there is, there's TNA in it. I think it actually gets a little bit gratuitous at one point, because it's just like, I don't know, like the stuff in the dungeon, right? With them hanging by chains, and you're just like, okay, I get it. Yeah, you're putting boobs in it to, attract people. But the one thing they didn't do for like a R-rated movie was like, there's really like not a lot of gore in this movie whatsoever, right? Yeah. And I mean, even there is someone gets their head chopped off, but like that's the most
only thing I can think of.
Not even that crazy. It's kind of wild to me, you know what I mean? But anyway, so back to the story. So these kids, they show up and they are brought there by Jezebel's agent, Paul. And he promises them auditions for this movie that's, being auditioned by the infamous Dr. Poe, who owns the vineyard. And his wine made at the vineyard goes for beaucoup amounts of money. Like in the beginning of the movie, after our first introduction to Poe, they have like an auction for wines, and Poe's wine auctions off for like $50,000 a bottle, which is crazy. And so, these kids show up, and then just bad things start happening. And what I got to say is, like, with Jezebel, which is interesting that I didn't know she was a Playboy bunny, because I was thinking during her whole thing, the acting's not great, but there are moments when she's on camera and you're like, oh my God, she's really holding her own against Dr. Poe, which, James Hong is like obviously the anchor for this movie, right? Like you go see this movie to see James Hong.
And James Hong himself, I mean, he's been in, don't quote me on this, but he's been in like more movies than literally almost anyone. Like,
I think so. Someone said it's like something like 400 projects or something.
Yeah.
But so, okay, again, back to the story. What I also really enjoyed about it too was the fact that they were willing to throw all kinds of stuff in it, right? So it's like you not only have him, going off and killing these younger people to make, I guess, really good wine and keep himself, young. But you've got zombies, you have martial arts,
Yep.
you know what I mean? Like there's all kinds of stuff in this movie, and it's wild and it's all over the place. And I don't know, I just, if you go in it like looking to have fun and enjoying yourself, you're going to have a lot of fun, I think. It is not something that you sit there and like expect to be scared, because you don't. I don't think there's one scary moment in the entire film, honestly.
No, I don't think so either. This is a fun horror movie. This is you can't take it seriously. If you're taking it seriously or trying to follow the story till the end, it doesn't make sense. The story does not make sense. Like
no, it really doesn't.
The overarching theme of Dr. Poe wants to stay young forever makes sense, but how he's accomplishing it is just all over the place. I mean, the man is, like you said, doing these, some sort of, Eastern, East Asia mysticism. But at one point he's praying to the Mayan god of the wind.
Right.
And also he's referring to the Mayan god of the wind as Sol. And I mean, I'm not up on Mayan or Spanish, but I have to assume that's actually a sun god and not a wind god, SOL. I'm pretty sure that the Mayan god of wind is actually Huracan. So like, they didn't even get the right god. I mean, so it's just kind of, he's using Eastern mysticism, but then he prays to a Mayan god to keep his youth, which is really, really interesting that they decided that was even like, why wouldn't you just stay with one? I guess he's hedging his bets. I don't know.
Okay, so I actually have a theory there too, because so as far as like the mixing of all this mysticism stuff, so he's got the Asian mysticism kind of comes into play when he's like cursing the kids, right? Like when there's at one point where he makes spiders come out of one of the women's mouth, or he uses a needle on like a little voodoo doll made of paper with the person's name written on it. And then also the main thing is that he's got this green jade amulet around his neck. So here's my theory. The amulet keeps him alive, right? He doesn't die without the amulet, but it doesn't control his aging, right? And then so he has to bring in the Mayan stuff to make himself look younger. And that's where I think like the newspaper clippings from like the Yucatan, right? Because he has a super popular wine way back in the day. I think he figured out there how to make himself young, praying to these Mayan gods. And so then he makes the wine to make himself young, or whatever concoction he does in his basement there to make himself young.
I think that's right. But you really have to which is so funny for a movie that's so all over the place. That is like one of the plot points that you really have to catch, or you're never going to understand why the Mayan gods are involved. Like it's literally, arguably the main protagonist is a journalist, right?
Right.
I guess. Like, and then they're kind of there's a few of them running around. But if you had to pick a hero of the story, besides just like confused teenagers, there's a journalist that writes for a wine magazine. It's unclear, what magazine, and his what is his name? Is it Jeff? Is that?
It's Jeremy.
Jeremy, thank you.
Jeremy,
and played by Michael Wong, and. And Jeremy has decided to accompany these teens. He's not trying out for the movie. He is trying to interview with Dr. Poe because he is this famous winemaker. Of course, it makes no sense because he's already done a profile on Dr. Poe for this wine magazine. So he's never interviewed the man, but he's already done a profile on him. Like, what? But then he decides that he wants to write something even more in depth just because of how famous this guy's wines are, and they're just the best in the world, apparently. And so he's come to the island as kind of like the nerdy like bookworm that starts putting things together, because for some reason he's given carte blanche to just wander around the mansion and look in the library and everything else. And for reasons unbeknown to anyone, Dr. Poe has decided to keep a scrapbook in his library that basically exposes the fact that he might be hundreds of years old and was kicked out of Mexico under suspicious circumstances.
Right. I want to know also, like, why does his praying to the Mayan gods return him to the age of basically like 60?
Right.
Like, what's that all about too, right?
Yeah.
Like, because by the time he figured this out, assume from my theory, he would be like hundreds and hundreds of years old. So like, why doesn't it go younger than that?
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
Older than that?
It's absolutely incredible that the powers that this man is invoking is to stop, is to, undo centuries of of aging just to stop at between 60 and 65. Like
Right.
he doesn't go back to like just like 25 to 30, like, younger, like, a younger self, especially because there's so much like sexual innuendo in this and sexual libido and everything else. The fact that he decides like 60, that's Dr. Poe's
Prime time, baby.
Absolute prime. It's my prime. But who knows? I mean, maybe that's, again, part of the story, although they never really fully explain it, part of the story is he is going to use Jezebel in some sort of ritual so that he now has a one-off solution for his immortality versus having to continually do this blood ritual. At least that's how I interpreted it. So maybe the blood ritual has a limit and this will make him even younger. Or he just really loves being 60. So.
I have no idea. I honestly don't know. And the other thing there I don't know is, in the movie, obviously, as what we're talking about is, at some point during the movie, he decides that Jezebel is the woman he's been praying for a very long time to be his wife. And it's like, maybe I missed it. I don't know. But like, I feel like it was all of a sudden just happened. Right. And I think that's a product of something too, because, how we've been working on like the Mario Bava stuff, right? And kind of like doing research on that whole thing. And, we learned that a lot of movies, at that time were being re-edited by distributors. I think this movie was actually re-edited by its distributor as well. I do. And go ahead.
I was going to say, to prove that point to you, I can pick it. I don't know if you caught it, but when he's telling when Dr. Poe is telling Jezebel about the blade of his father and the mother, right? The staircase is in front of them and they're looking at the photos, right? And then there's a zoom in on the mother, right? And then it zooms back out to them and they are in a courtyard next to a stone bench with no time lapse at all. So they go from an inside to an exterior shot and it's really it's hilarious because I will say the editor did a good job because initially it's just kind of like blacked out behind Dr. Poe when he's speaking again, but you can kind of see trees and I'm looking at it and I'm like, what's going on? And then the next shot is both of them, Dr. Poe and Jezebel, and they're standing next to the stone bench in the garden. So it's like, I think you're right. I think they probably came in and did some distributor editing there. Yeah.
I think it was probably a longer project. I think so. This movie's like an hour and 35 minutes.
Yeah.
I bet you it had probably like another 10 minutes in it that was cut out, I think, or maybe 15. I don't know. Because I think what you just brought up is a good point. I also think Jezebel's relationship with her boyfriend from the beginning is also like weirdly cut. Like it makes no sense, right? Because like in the beginning, he's complaining to her like, why you have to go out and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, I'm doing this for us and blah, 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 blah. And then like through the rest of the movie, he just keeps complaining about her like never being around, but he's just hanging out with her friend the entire time too. Right.
Yeah.
And then there's also, and to go back to him, maybe he just got cut out a lot. Maybe his parts were not as interesting to the distributor because there's also his introduction at the island when Paul, the agent, takes them all to the car and introduces them to Poe. He's like, and this is Lucas. He's a martial arts expert. And then literally you have the cut to the two bodyguards and they both eye each other like, ooh, competition. And then that goes nowhere.
Oh yeah, he's actually in a few fight scenes and he does terrible. Like, no martial arts involved.
No martial arts whatsoever. Yeah, exactly. Like even like the big showdown stuff, he's running around with a bow and arrow and like, which by the way, those scenes are really well lit and beautiful. But like whoever did that, I mean, obviously the DP, but I'm just saying like the crew did exceptionally well in the cask cellar or whatever they're running around in the barn, I guess. Yeah. It's like the lighting there is really, really good. And it really, I don't know. It's like, it's one of the better segments of that entire film because it just like, it looks good. It moves. It's really nice.
And going back to the bow and arrows though, correct me if I'm wrong. Don't they just find that on the ground out of nowhere and then suddenly they just have a bow and arrows?
It's not just like out of nowhere. It's like they are literally outside of the house looking into the basement where all the dangerous experiments are happening and they're peeking through a window. And then, what's the friend's name? Claudia or Tina? No, Tina's the wife who gets chained up in the basement in the very beginning.
Oh, shoot. Is it Claudia?
It might be Claudia. So like Claudia, the friend of Jezebel, who's with Lucas. Again, Lucas and Claudia are like hanging out all the time. She just like looks over to her side and she goes, look at this. And she holds up a bow and arrow.
Yes,
and you're like, what?
And so what's funny about that is I saw the bow, right, and which is weird within itself, right? But like it was almost like a video game. It was like grab bow, collect arrows, and all of a sudden we're armed and we're like running around. It's like I wasn't sure if I missed it where like maybe they grabbed the bow and then when they ran into the barn slash like you said like the cask, I don't know, the winery. I wasn't sure if they grabbed like arrows off the wall or something, but they were together, right? It was just a bow and arrow sitting there for no reason.
They're just bow and arrow, and remember the bow didn't have the string, so he has to like yank the string off a light. Like they made a whole thing about it, which was kind of weird. Like I don't understand. I don't know. It was just really funny. It's like here's the weapon, but you can't use the weapon until you figure it out. And it's like, okay, cool.
Because I feel like because again, and this is I think more so because the story is all over the place. I don't think we've done a good job of breaking down what the story is because we keep talking about these it's just like vignettes of like I felt like almost every scene was just like a vignette and like an own little story within itself because it wasn't that cohesive all the way through. So we get these teens, they get to this island because they think they're trying out for a movie. That never really gets addressed again except later in a garden scene where Dr. Poe says we have to go do auditions, but we don't see the auditions, mind.
Nope. Back after the auditions.
Right. So we have these teens, they're at this island, they've been tricked there because they're going to be, ritualistically sacrificed essentially to keep Dr. Poe young, right? Yeah. And so Dr. Poe meets them, we go inside, all of a sudden we kind of get transported to some weird costume party where, some people are dressed up and some people aren't. Dr. Poe's wearing that gold mask, dancing around. The recruiter, Jezebel's agent is wearing, I have no idea what. It's a very odd costume.
But that's also that's a very classic 80s scene, right? It's like the dance scene. You have to have the dance scene in 80s movies.
And then you have like these kind of throwaway teen characters, right? And it was like two different groups. You had Jezebel, Claudia. What's Jezebel's boyfriend's name?
Lucas.
You have them. Then you have the other group, which was just it was two women and a guy named Brad, who's like the big muscular guy, right? So they're all at this party and, there's the scene where the two women decide to eat whatever appetizer is out and they're talking about how delicious it is. And Lucas comes over and he tries one and he says, blah, tastes like spiders. It's so bitter. And I'm sitting here going, how do you even know what spiders taste like? Right? What do you mean? Right. And then next thing we know, Brad's getting acupuncture done on him by Dr. Poe, right? And at one point, some of the needles disappear, and like Lucas is going, "Oh, he's palming them, right?" He's like, "Oh, he's palming the needles. You guys can't tell." But what we find out later is he's actually just leaving them inside Brad, right? And Brad doesn't realize it. He's like sliding them in too deep so no one can see it. So anyway, so they do this acupuncture thing, and suddenly the virile, Brad just has this insatiable sexual libido. He goes back with the two non-important women characters to their room where he's trying to score with one of them. I think her name was Kim, but I could be wrong. And
I have no idea.
The good roommate kicks him out and says, "No, Brad, come back later." Right? So then he goes to his room. They're in their room. He comes back because he's still horny, and then kind of like just weird stuff starts happening where he gets let in and then
wait, do you mean like weird stuff like the two women doing calisthenics in their pajamas?
Before bedtime? Right. Yeah, you're right about that. I actually asked my fiance, I was like, "Oh, is this what women do when they're like doing she said no. She said,
she watched this too with you?
She did. Nina watched it. Yeah.
What'd you think of the movie?
She felt like we felt that it was very much like just a fun movie. It wasn't scary at all. It was just kind of funny. She had some comments. She loves Big Trouble in Little China too. She has a soft spot for James Hong. And more than once she said, is this just like a booty version of Lo Pan? Like, is that what
it really is. It really is.
Yeah, it is. It's like an almost supernatural, Asian man trying to stay young forever, right? Like that's
right. That's. I was going to say sorcerer. It's basically that's what it is. He's a sorcerer. Yeah. Right. He's a sorcerer in this movie. He's a sorcerer in that movie, and he's looking to sacrifice a white woman to appease an ancient god to keep him young forever. That's basically both movies in a way.
Yeah, and the reason why kind of the Chinese sorcerer part is important is because we learn about his lineage, and he may actually be half god if you think about it. Just kind of how that, which is again interesting within itself. But so back to this. So whatever. Weird calisthenics Brad shows up again. Blah blah blah. And then Kim, I'm going to call her Kim. I hope I'm right. Is in the bathroom.
Kim, Tina. I don't know. They're all classic '80s names too.
Right. Nameless, pretty blonde in the bathroom is all of a sudden, like you said earlier, and I actually thought this was like the coolest special effect out of all of them. Spiders start coming out of her mouth and start coming out of her skin because she ate those appetizers from earlier that Lucas so on the nose identifies as tastes as spiders, which is hilarious to me. And then they're like, they're cutting away to Dr. Poe, who's down in his ritual chambers in the basement, who's making this happen, right? He's like doing some kind of, again, just ancient Chinese mysticism to like make all of this happen. So then we end up with the two less important female teens and Brad. They end up, in the dungeon, right? And this is how Dr. Poe is going to kind of continue his blood feeling of himself to keep him young, right? And so that's almost like a split in the movie right there, because I really thought we were going to start seeing a little bit more of like using the mysticism for horror purposes, and then I felt like they kind of pulled away from that a little bit, and they almost went like, and Nina pointed this out, she's like, sometimes it felt like I was watching one of those 1970s like kung fu movies, because
sure
it pulled back, and then all of a sudden it was like Dr. Poe's like mindless henchman like causing like a ruckus, right? But then while all of these people are just down in the dungeon and the others have been informed, they weren't right for the part, we, for these auditions for this movie, we've sent them home. Everyone just goes, oh, okay, well, rather rude of them to not say goodbye. And we go back to just like, life is normal. So like, it was like this big, like, it was like act two, and like, we just kind of didn't bother with them as much anymore. They're just for a long stretch of the movie, they're just chilling in the dungeon, strung up.
Yeah, you're right. You think it's going to get more horrible, but it doesn't really do that. Instead, it's like we get a little bit more of like the zombie thing, right? And so even that's really funny too, because you can tell like whatever they had of the zombies, like they didn't have much because there's the one point where the zombies are rising out of the grave, right? And he's like, "Oh, we have to stop them." And so he does his little chant. And then literally they play the same footage over again, but in reverse. And it's basically just the zombies who've just risen, and they're literally just going back. And you wouldn't notice it, except that it's basically played back to back. And so you're like, I'm just watching the same shot in reverse.
Right. Yep. And then later, his chants aren't working, so he orders his henchmen, who have hilarious names like Scarecrow, by the way.
They're really good henchman names.
And he hands them a bag of sacred dirt or sacred earth, and he was like, you have to go pour the sacred earth on the zombies. And so they're just outside like flinging like dust at zombies, and it's making them go back into the ground
in slow motion too. That's what I love about it.
Yeah It's like it's a little all over the place, but as far as I can tell, the bodies are only being used as fertilizer, which is making his wine taste good to others, and why it's being bid up so high. But what's interesting is, as far as like the wine going out to market for the rest of the world to consume, there's no health benefits to it as far as I can tell. There's nothing that's like, if you there's no secret like, maybe this like, reverses 5 years of aging or something like that. It's just human bodies make for really good fertilizer for vineyards. Like that's the point of that.
And I don't even know if the bodies are being fertilizer, because I thought that at first too, but it's like because they can still crawl out of the ground, right? And so it's like they're not exactly like chopped up or anything. So it's like, is he using the bodies to make the wine like he did with he had the woman thrown in the giant wine vat, and then her body just kind of sank in? And then is he pulling them out and then just trying to bury them? But they're like the undead, so they just keep rising unless you put sacred burial dirt over them.
So I wondered about that, but remember at one point, one of the henchmen says, let's take the bodies to the mainland so we don't have to deal with this anymore. And he says, no, you're going to keep them in the vineyard. So I thought the implication there was that the bodies are, and I don't know if he's bloodletting them or something like that.
Yeah.
But my understanding was that the bodies are important for his wine, and that's why it's so world renowned. But, and we haven't got there yet, we haven't talked about the mom yet, but I thought the reason they were rising was because he was in that mortal struggle with his mother, and she was also using what limited magic she still had left to make them rise from the dead. Because
which she does.
Right, you're right.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why they're rising from the dead. And
Probably,
but I think he
right.
needs them for his crop. Yeah.
That's a really good point, actually. That's a really good point, because it is, and we should talk about the mom too, because we haven't mentioned her at all.
No, at all, and she's super important.
She's super important. The makeup on her is actually kind of great. I do like a lot of like the zombie makeup in this movie, and even like his old man makeup's pretty good too, I gotta say.
Yeah, it is.
So then in flashbacks, it's revealed that Dr. Poe steals this immortal amulet from his mother, who is a god, I guess. Goddess, sorry, and then keeps her locked up in the house. Because she doesn't die. She just stays immortal?
Right. Yes. But it seems like she's immortal. Perhaps, I think there was a little bit of an implication that he didn't quite yet have the power to fully destroy her. But I think she's immortal, but her amulet is the key to her being young. And so I think she's aging, but she's not dying because she still retains enough of her power to stay immortal. To stay immortal. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that was the Jeremy, who for the protagonist we really have not spoken about very much, which is kind of funny, right? He's
kind of one of the lamest characters.
Yeah, he really is. Oh my God, when the Asian henchman Gok makes fun of him and says, "You like to read books," and starts slugging him, Nina was just dying. Absolutely dying. And she was like, oh my God, this is so for the audience out there, Nina is also Asian, and she was just like, oh my God, of course, that's what they're gonna get right there.
He's just that poor guy just is not given enough of this movie whatsoever.
No, he really did not get the respect that he deserved. But
no, not at all.
But when he again, because his protagonist superpower is research, apparently. He uncovers that the medallion that Dr. Poe is wearing under his shirt, so I'm not sure how Jeremy ever saw it. He makes a connection that the jade medallion that Dr. Poe is wearing is the same as the medallion in that book, and he rushes out to the garden to confront Dr. Poe because he thinks he's wearing this mystic medallion. He actually uses the name for the mother at that point, and he says it in Chinese, but apparently it translates to "daughter of a god." So I don't know if she's actually a goddess herself, or if she's like in Greek mythology, you kind of have like wood nymphs and things like that. Like I kind of got the feeling that she was like a spirit, but maybe not like full on she god.
Yeah. And in the flashback, she's being threatened by her husband.
Yeah, right. Yep, exactly.
Who then a young Dr. Poe kills with a sword.
And it's great, too, because the husband is threatening her to steal this powerful medallion, and he does rip it off her neck. And while you're looking at the husband, you don't see it, but all of a sudden he does the and the young Dr. Poe, who's probably 8, has stabbed him in the kidney and killed him. And then, as the mother is aging in front of him, this 8-year-old sociopath decides to not return the medallion and keep it for himself at 8 years old, which is absolutely hilarious. He's staring at his mother aging, and she's pleading with him, with her eyes and reaching for it, and he's like, "No, I'm good. I'm gonna keep this medallion."
He has he definitely has mother issues, and it's so funny too because there's a scene in this movie where the older Dr. Poe, at 60 years old now, is in the basement doing his thing, and she stops him with her magic somehow. And I can't remember what scene that was, but what stands out to me was that he's basically yelling at his mom from the basement to stop it, and I just bust out laughing. I was like, "Oh my God, oh, this is amazing!"
Speaking of the medallion, because again, it's in some way incredibly important to this movie, but also not really explained enough. I don't know if you noticed, but he only has a piece of it that he's wearing, right?
Right.
It's like it's broken for some reason.
Oh,
And
I thought it was shrinking.
So this is actually something I wanted to ask you about and get your thought on it. At one point, protagonist Jeremy, has a throwaway line, right? And he says to Dr. Poe, what do you think about the Chinese belief that ground up jade can help you live longer? And so then I was like, oh, is he grinding up the medallion and mixing it in with his like blood concoction? Because Dr. Poe says, Jeremy lists two things. I don't remember what the second one was. He asks what he thinks about both of them, right? And Dr. Poe says, jade in particular, I can personally attest, like ground jade will help you live longer. So I think maybe he was grinding up the medallion and like needed it in his blood concoction. And that's why it got so small. So,
that makes sense because you're right.
Might be why he needed Jezebel for the final ritual so that he had a one-off solution.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because in the beginning of the movie, when he does turn into an old man, he goes down to the basement and his assistant grinds up something. They never show what it is. Yeah, gawk. They don't show you what he's grinding up. He's just grinding something up and then adds it to a drink and then he drinks it and he turns young again. So that's actually a really good point.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, and, it's kind of like, don't get me wrong, I don't think this movie needed to be longer than 95 minutes. It's, the faster paced it is, the more fun it is because a lot of it's all over the place. But I do wonder, as you pointed out, most likely there were some edits done here that probably affected the storyline a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
I'm not saying it made it make complete sense, but I do think there was a little bit lost in translation on some of the scene jumps.
But I think you definitely needed it. Yes, it's a little all over the place. It's a little nonsensical in many places. But I think if you had something longer that really kind of drew it out, you would get so bored. And you don't really get bored with this movie. You're just like, what the F is going on in this movie? But it's never really like, I'm kind of bored. This is kind of like, it's more like you're enjoying it. And the actors in all the scenes that are in the movie seem to be enjoying it as well. Like everyone seems to be having a good time. So it's like, you can't complain. It's actually like a fun movie. And that's why I think it's best with like a group. Yeah.
So we talked about the mother and, she's some ancient Chinese spirit that is now locked in the attic. At one point she even someone finds her that's presumably a good guy, or at least someone trapped on the island, and she attacks him for some reason, which doesn't make a lot of sense, but okay. But she also seems to have this ability to, even in her weakened state, still compete with Dr. Poe, right? And kind of cancel some of his powers. So like we said before, we think she's bringing the corpses and the garden or the vineyard back to life to possibly attack Dr. Poe. He's keeping them at bay with his own power and then some, mystic earth and things like that. And we're getting to this point where it seems like she's probably the only one that maybe can stop him, but we're not really sure how, right?
Yeah.
Well, in the meantime, what we haven't talked about is, for some reason, unless I missed it, I didn't see him doing any magic. For some reason, Jezebel just becomes completely enamored with Dr. Poe after he feeds her some basically lo mein noodles. And
it's very true.
And again, this one's kind of the scene break I was talking about earlier, right? So those first three characters that were castaways down in the dungeon, we're back. The second act is almost like Jezebel and Dr. Poe are in love. And I didn't see a lot of again, Dr. Poe's powers involved there. It just seems like for some reason she's fallen in love with a 60-year-old man.
I know, it's so weird. But then you got to think about too, her relationship with Lucas is on the rocks as well, right? And and there's a weird thing going on with Lucas too, where it's one, he's way more possessive of her, and she really almost doesn't want to have anything to do with him. He tells the friend tells him, he's like, yeah, she's mentioned you guys haven't done it yet. I'm sure it's not you, yada, yada, yada. But then it even goes even further too. When he's running around in that sort of final fight scene with him and the friend, Claudia, I think. I'm just going to keep calling her Claudia because I think that's her name.
No, you're right.
Remember when he pulled out the dagger and she goes, what's that? He's like, it's a dagger I found. And she's like, it's kind of small. And he gives her that look and you're just wait a minute. Does he have a small dick? Is that what's his been issues? And then you start thinking about it, you're like, wait, is Jezebel putting him to the side because he has a small penis and he's embarrassed by it? And does Dr. Poe then have a huge penis, and that's what she's enamored by?
Right. Yeah.
It's very strange.
There's a lot of like weird sexual tensions throughout the movie, which is like, again, pretty common in 80s kind
True.
of, it's like, that's very much like a thing. It's almost expected, right? Like if you're going to be watching, like, let's be honest, this is a B movie, right? And if you're
100%.
watching a B movie and there's, like you said before, if there's not a bunch of tits and ass, like some people are going to feel like they didn't even get their money's worth, even if the story's good, because that's like the expectation. You got a bunch of like good looking teens. You're going to want to see some of that, like the audience. Right. And they deliver on that for sure. But I think that's a good point. James Hong definitely, because he's the writer too. He definitely wrote in some stuff where you're wondering if the implication here is Dr. Poe is just really hung and Lucas is, our small dick martial artist. So yeah, it's
so
great
true.
point there. Yeah,
it's so
I also like in the beginning when Dr. Poe is seducing his then wife, who ends up in the dungeon because she cheats on him. But I do like that. Not only do we get to see, the wife topless, we get to see James Hong topless too, and that made me laugh. I was like,
no. But soon after that, my favorite line in the movie, where he finally does have the driver, who's obviously sleeping with his wife, confronted by his assistant. And I don't know if you remember this, but it's like the martial arts scene, right? And they're fighting each other down the stairs, and he gets the driver on the ground, the assistant does. And the assistant's standing him over with a knife. And then you hear Dr. Poe in the background go, "Castrate him!" And I had to back it up. I was like, wait, did he really just say that? And I turned on captions just to make sure I heard the right thing.
Yeah.
And then sure enough, he castrates him.
Yep. And then he says, "Now kill him," which was, it was like, "Now stab him to death," or whatever he says. So he castrates him. And then like 5 seconds later, he kills him. Yes, I did catch that.
Folks, if by now you haven't decided to watch this movie, you really should watch this movie. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
And again, perhaps we are not doing the story justice, but I think when you watch this, you will understand why it is our description of it is so all over the place, because truly it is just, it's kind of madcap.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And we didn't even get to the end. We didn't get to the end where it's like he's got Jezebel on a Mayan altar that shows up out of nowhere.
Yes. Yep. And his 3 assistants are standing around him like, I guess, Mayan priests or something. Half standing guard, maybe participating, unclear.
Not quite sure, feeling it out, gonna see what's gonna happen.
They got the torches going. Like, it's very, it's a little voodoo-esque.
It's a little voodoo-esque, it is. But it's like, where was that Mayan altar the whole time? Was it there the entire time? Like, it's the first time we've seen it. I feel like such a big stone altar in the world of the movie would be extremely hard to like just move around the location.
Well, you have to keep in mind, in the 19th century, he was evicted from the Yucatan. So he had to take his Mayan altar with him when they kicked him out of Mexico.
and then Mom from her window view raises the dead, right? And the zombies come attack him.
Yes.
And he ages, and the amulet drops into the bowl of whatever is in that bowl next to Jezebel, who's seemingly under hypnosis at this point, I guess.
Yeah, but we're not sure why.
We're not sure why. Yeah, I know. I know he writes the Chinese symbol on her.
Yes.
Back earlier in the movie, and I assume that has some sort of mind control over her, but I have no idea.
And Nina told me I don't want to be wrong, but I'm pretty sure she told me that was just the symbol that was on the medallion, and it means like long life or something like that.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So she's all like hypnotized or zonked out, and then the amulet falls into that bowl of liquid next to her.
Probably blood.
Sure.
That's the assumption, right?
But it makes the bowl glow,
right?
And then he drinks it.
Yes.
And then the zombies come and they bury him in the ground.
Yes.
But that's what's funny is they rise from the dead, right? And they do their slow zombie walk, which is not a very good slow zombie walk. And there's one guy who's like really shaking his hands really hard. I'm like, I don't understand the rules of these zombies. Like, what are they doing? But then what's funny is that it cuts to a shot looking at Poe backing up away from them. And then they enter the frame and all of a sudden they're holding weapons. Like, I don't know where these zombies got like a bat and like another one's got like a huge stick. And it's like, wait, so the zombies also carry weapons? Like, what happened? We missed something. And then naturally they race him up. And then he gets dragged down in the group. You don't see him, and then he's just gone.
Yeah. At one point, his eyes are glowing green. Don't forget that.
Yeah, that's true.
That was kind of cool.
It's a classic '80s move, but I gotta say, it worked for this movie, right? Yeah. Like it was a lot of fun for this movie.
Right.
So I think they did a good job there. And then Jeremy, our journalist investigator, runs up to Mom and gives her the amulet. He like fishes it out of the bowl, runs it up to her. And she turns into young Mom and then disappears with the gods, I assume.
Yeah, her amulet fully restores itself. Once she puts it on, it turns back into like the full amount instead of like the broken piece of jade. She's young again, and she's just like, okay, deuces.
And then you have the one shot. So she disappears, and then it cuts to an exterior shot of the door of the house, of the mansion, and our like 3 remaining characters, I think it is, whatever, they're like standing on the edges of the frame. It's almost like it was framed wrong. You can tell the actors are just waiting for the director to tell them to move, because we're looking at the door opens, Jeremy walks out, and then the actors start moving up towards him, even though they weren't talking to each other. They were literally just like waiting to hear go or action or whatever. And then the camera pushes in, and does he say anything? What does he do? I don't even remember. Well, it doesn't matter, because like whatever, I mean, literally it doesn't matter what he does, because the next shot is then Dr. Poe rising from the grave again, because he, I assume because he drank that, the bowl with the amulet in it, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And then 80s freeze frame.
Yeah. And that's it.
With glowing green eyes.
That's the end. That's the end of the movie. I guess
it's kind of awesome.
Yeah, no, it's great. I guess like I know I identified Jeremy as the protagonist. I think because he kind of figured out what was going on better than anyone else. I don't think he figured out everything. But it felt like he was actually actively investigating and like realizing Dr. Poe's evil, while everyone else kind of like needs to see it before they believe it, right? Like Lucas and Claudia see Dr. Poe through the window drinking the blood, like, 15 minutes before the conclusion of the movie. Whereas Jeremy's like kind of like getting suspicious the whole time, right? And then don't forget, okay, I got to go back a little bit because this cracked me up. But, this is before Jezebel is being hypnotized or anything. I don't even think she has the symbol on her yet. So as far as I know, she's just enamored with Dr. Poe, right? And Jeremy is trying to warn her. And this is when Dr. Poe's in the basement with the simulacrum of Jeremy, like the voodoo doll essentially of Jeremy, right? And he like lights it on fire, and all of a sudden Jeremy gets like he's running a fever. He gets really faint. He can't speak or anything. And instead of like helping him or staying with him, Jezebel just runs off to find Dr. Poe and leaves this man completely alone in the garden, right? And then brings Dr. Poe back, and then Dr. Poe's like, oh yeah, like it seems like he had a fever, but he's okay now. I'll go send someone for help. And Jezebel goes, okay. And they both just leave Jeremy again, like on this stone bench in the garden. And then the next time you see Jeremy, it's night and he's waking up by himself on this stone bench. No one ever came for him. And then he's just like, time to go stop Dr. Poe. And the fact that like there was no concern from Jezebel at all, that they're just like leaving this bit, like it's like I don't know. It was just really, really funny to me.
I know. They didn't really know what to do with that guy, the poor guy. He just kind of laid there. But they needed him out of the picture for a while so they could go focus on other people, I guess.
Right.
So give him a nap. That's the best way to do it, I guess.
It was very much like a choose your own adventure where like the different characters all kind of had their own like story that was happening in this bigger movie, right? Where like I don't think it always flowed together necessarily.
No, it didn't. And maybe it did in like, the director's cut maybe. But I do think the director's cut probably was a little boring, probably a little slow. Because it did have to explain all of the batshit stuff that was going on.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say though, on that note, so the assistant, Gok, is that his name?
Gok, the Asian assistant?
Yes.
Yeah. Gok.
So he's actually a producer on this movie, and he helped like pull the funds together. And so he did an interview with Arrow in 2019 about this movie. And he said that basically the story is the way it is because he had a very small window to pitch James Hong in this movie. And that's like the best thing he could come up with. It was like martial arts and zombies and a group of teenagers being killed off by an old man. Like
That's
literally,
awesome.
like I know it is. It's kind of awesome. And so, okay, so then that also brings us to how much do you think this movie was made for?
1989.
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of gave it away a little bit. I will try not to use the fact that you implied it was a low budget. If you hadn't done that, I would say it probably cost maybe like $5 million. Now that I know that you kind of gave me a wink and a nod at the beginning, maybe 400,000,
$250,000.
Wow. I mean,
can you imagine? Right?
Good for
applause.
That. I mean,
they throw so much at you, and like the practical effects in the zombies look so like the makeup. By the way, Peter Koenig is the special effects artist on this movie, and he does a fantastic job. So hats off to him for sure. But then also just hands off to the producers for being able to just stuff so much in this movie with so little amount of money, right?
And it's like, I think one of the things that makes this movie so fun, which is very hard to do when you're low budget, it's nonstop action. It's always moving. And when you don't have a big budget, it can be really tough to do that. And that's why sometimes you'll see a little bit too much dialogue in a low budget movie or something like that, because they don't have the funds or the ability to do action scenes and things like that. But I felt like it was just constantly the pacing of it. Just that's why I would call this a fun horror movie. And to your point, it's just fun, like have a couple drinks with friends and watch this and, laugh your ass off.
Right. Exactly. I 100% agree with you. 100% agree with you. And also, by the way, if you don't know who Peter Koenig is, he worked on like Jurassic Park. He worked on Starship Troopers. He worked on Blade 2. I mean, he's done like huge movies, and he did a really good job with special effects. And I wonder how much he got paid for this movie too. Like, I wonder if they basically just covered his like costs to do the makeup and special effects, and then that was pretty much it.
I also wonder, like, with the actors and everything. I mean, it is a single location, presumably, right? I think they just found a house and used the surrounding grounds.
They did. I want to say it was like up near Santa Clarita or something like that.
Okay. Yeah. And so that, obviously can cut down on costs. If you have like the big grounds like they had and everything else, they can kind of do everything at a single location. And then you got to think that people were just agreeing to do stuff just way under rate or for free. Like I would imagine a lot of those actors and actresses were not getting SAG rate.
They also did their own special stunt work. There were no stunt people. So all the people in the movie are doing their own stunt work. So
and they definitely were not getting SAG rates because at least they weren't union, because that's a no-no.
Right. As far as the budget goes and how this movie looks and everything else, I think it looks really good for a $250,000 movie. I think, there's definitely like a lot of basic coverage, but I think the blocking works really well. Like the blocking, with the exception of maybe the 80s dancing, which I think the dancing's like a little too hokey. Like maybe they should have, I don't know, maybe used more like close-ups to kind of like feel like a bigger scene. Cause really like when they got to that wide, it's just like 5 people like jumping around on their feet. I don't know. It just felt weird, but I think like it looks good for what it was priced at. And they do a really good job of, like you said, like delivering the action and keeping it moving and just keeping it very snappy. And like it never overextends its stay. That's for sure. It never does that. So
I agree. I think, from what you're saying from a technical perspective, it's missing some of the stuff that you would expect in a horror movie, like kind of like the extreme close-ups that are going to like throw you off, right? So that your audience is kind of like trying to tell what's going on, and then you kind of get like the jump scare or something like that. At no point do I feel scared in this movie. I don't think there was a single time where I was hesitant about what was next, but I was excited about what was next because of just like, again, how fun it was. So, it works. It's like, it's just good, campy fun. So, from a technical perspective, did it deliver a scary horror movie based on just like the cinematography alone or like the sound design? No, it didn't. It was very, it was very broad strokes, right? Everything was, but there was nothing wrong with it either. There was nothing there that made it hard to watch or anything.
Yeah, I agree 100%. For our next movie, do you have an idea of what we're going to watch?
Great question. Really should have pulled up a list here. I mean, I know we talk, we've been working on a lot of things, Mario Bava. So I know we talked about doing Blood and Black Lace.
We're definitely going to do a Blood and Black Lace episode for sure. We have to.
I don't know if that's next or if we want to save that for a couple episodes down the line. What are you feeling?
I think we should definitely do that. I'd like to do another movie as well. I have a few ideas, and I'm thinking maybe what I'll do is I'll kind of keep that close to the chest, and then we'll just reveal it in the next episode, maybe.
Yeah,
what do you think?
No, I'm totally down for that. And then,
Okay.
I think in the meantime, what would be really fun is, anyone listening to this, if you have seen The Vineyard or you watch it after listening to this and then you kind of have your own thoughts on it, we'd love to hear from you and just kind of get your take on this.
Oh, 100%. You can, this is going to post in a few places, right? So this podcast will post on Spotify. We will also post on YouTube. So comment in the comment section of YouTube. Let us know. Or if you want, reach out to us on Twitter or Instagram, Terrors of Tubi. Simple as that. And you can tell us, what you thought of the movie or what you maybe want to see in the future or hear about in the future. And also definitely check the show notes as well as the description of this episode for our newsletter sign up, which is what we'll be starting this week. And it'll basically be a rundown of what's new on Tubi, what's coming out in theaters that you can watch too, and maybe even comparing the two of what current movies are out, and then also what movies on Tubi that they're stealing from to make whatever they're doing right now, right? Yeah. And then also we will be running contests out of there too. So sign up for our newsletter, get the details. We'll only email you once a week. We're not going to sell your information to anyone. We're just using this as a way to stay in contact with the folks and keep an open conversation about what's on Tubi, what great horror movies you can check out with either by yourself or with friends. And, you get a little contest every week, of some little gift coming in. So I think it's something definitely worthwhile.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, the reason why we're kind of focusing on Tubi with this podcast is because they have so many horror movies on there, a lot that you probably have never heard of, which is kind of cool, or at least haven't really got the spotlight that they deserve, or maybe we'll find out don't deserve. We'll see. And it's neat too because it's free, right? It's just there's ads, but that's it. There's no cost to sign up or anything like that. So
you don't even have to create an account.
No, you can just play. You just have to. You can't skip the ads. That's the only thing with it, and it makes it cool for us because then we know whatever we're talking about. You have the opportunity. Maybe you've already watched it, or you can go on Tubi and check it out. And maybe there's stuff on Tubi you've seen that we haven't covered. And again, just shout us out and say, hey, you should really do this one for your next episode, and we'll take some episode ideas from you.
Wait, Joe, I totally forgot. Do you want me to read some of the best and worst reviews of The Vineyard that are on Letterboxd?
Oh, yes. I 100% like that. Yes.
Okay, so I'm only going to pick two. I'm going to pick the best one I thought and the worst one I thought. And so the worst one is a 1-star review by Lou Mayer, and it's literally one line, and it's Motel Hell, but make it horny.
How is that a 1-star though? Because that sounds amazing.
Right?
That's almost like a 5-star.
That's what I'm saying. Okay, and then here's the 5-star review from February of last year. And this one is a little bit longer, so bear with me here. But it's actually a really funny review. Okay, here we go. Blonde Valley Girls, the source of eternal life. James Hong is one of the hardest working character actors ever. The guy has nearly 450 credits to his name going back to the 1950s. So this is his reward. He gets to have all the naked ladies fawn over him as he drinks magic elixir and makes zombies at his winery. If more winery tours had secret dungeons and rampaging zombies, I'd be more interested in going in on them. James Hong makes this film fun. Everybody else looks like an elk in floodlights. James Hong devours the scenery like he is in a scenery eating contest, and all you can tell is he's having an absolute blast being the completely mad villain. The story is campy mess, but you don't care. You want to see more James Hong being totally mad as a vineyard owner and the dehydrated Skeletor he truly is. This movie will be enjoyed based on how much you like James Hong. I love James Hong, and it's great to see James Hong writing and directing James Hong to be as campy as James Hong can possibly be. This is a glorious product of the 1980s that seems to exist solely for the enjoyment of the makers, and we get a glimpse into that world. It is silly and strange, enough for 4 stars, but it gets a 5th solely for James Hong. It's pretty good.
They're not wrong. James Hong definitely carries the day in the movie. He is a big reason on why it's fun. So that is fair. That is fair. The only other thing we never got back to, we don't have to, but if you watch this movie and you've also seen Big Trouble in Little China, just kind of keep in mind that this came out 3 years after, and see if you notice all the parallels, because they're there, and we don't have to go through them. But if you haven't seen Big Trouble in Little China, what is wrong with you? Go watch it.
Oh, I would definitely watch that too before this, right?
Yeah. Yes, or after. I mean,
maybe.
I mean, just if you, either way, you need to see both of them. But you're right. If you haven't seen Big Trouble in Little China, maybe watch it before this so you can see all the parallels. And that's also, I believe, on Tubi.
Is it? Because that's what we should do too. We should do a Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah.
I love me some John Carpenter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm fairly certain. That's one of those popular movies that kind of gets passed around the different subscription services and everything. So it doesn't always show up on the free ad services, but I'm pretty sure that's streaming on Tubi right now.
You're right. It is. Can confirm. I just looked it up.
I can't promise how long it'll be on there, because that's definitely one of those ones where it'll be on there one day and then you check the next day and it's like leaving tomorrow. It'll be on there for like a week and then bounce again. So I know. If you're listening to this and it's still on there, watch it today before it's gone.
Funny thing about Big Trouble in Little China, it's only 4 minutes longer than The Vineyard.
Okay, that just shows you how fast The Vineyard plays them, because I thought for sure Big Trouble in Little China was 2 hours. I really, and not in a bad way, but there's so much packed into that movie. I really thought that was a 2-hour movie.
Yeah, so there you go.
Yeah. All right, then.
All right, well, I think that about wraps it up for us, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's it. It's an hour of The Vineyard when it's an hour and 35 minutes. It's probably all we need.
If you want to get in touch with us, you can follow us on Twitter at Terrors of Tubi. You can subscribe to our channel on YouTube, Terrors of Tubi, or you can follow us on Instagram, Terrors of Tubi. Joe, do you want them to follow any individual accounts for you?
No, not for me.
Yeah, just reach out to us at Terrors of Tubi. Let us know what you think of the movie. Let us know what you think of this podcast, because we're going to be putting out a lot more episodes and you're going to have to put up with a lot more of us.
And until the next podcast, stay terrified, y'all.